we wanted to talk to you today about advanced consciousness therapy. What is it?
Where
What
did
is
it
it
come
not?
from?
Where did it come from?
Right.
And you're sitting here with the founders of the therapeutic modality. What's different about advanced consciousness therapy is that we're looking at our inner state before we're exploring anything else. So the largest core difference is where change is sourced from. In traditional therapies, we're asking like, what happened to you? Or how do you change this pattern? Whereas advanced consciousness therapy is asking a more foundational question, which is from what state are you relating to yourself and the world right now? But
Right.
before we even talk about states,
The basis of this was that I had choice. And that was a really astounding thing to me, that I had agency over choosing my state. I'd never heard that. I'd never experienced it. And I can remember exactly where I was the first time that I allowed myself to actually change from a contracted state of the way I'd always viewed the world to an expanded state. And it worked. And I was like, oh my God, like this is a possibility. And what agency it was. Now, the flip side of that agency is can't blame anybody else anymore, right? So that agency works both ways, but it's absolutely paramount that we are always able to decide which state we're going to be in. And we're going to jump into that a little bit more. So the first thing is that you have agency, you can choose. The second thing is that you're choosing one of two states.
When we really start to gather all the pieces together and then look at what's under that, well, then what's under that? Well, then what does that mean? Well, what's under that? So really, when you kind of look at even the nervous system state, so we know about sympathetic and parasympathetic. Basically, we're in fight or flight. So it's a stress response. And those things are active in the entire body, in the entire system. So everything that changes in the body also changes how your mind perceives your situation. You're in that heightened, activated state. Now, when you settle that down, all of a sudden other things also become more available.
Right.
And when we kind of explored that, well, what does that mean? So when that part of the system is not kind of running the show, and we get down to, okay, when we are kind of back to our natural state of rest and repair, what is available then? And the goal with advanced consciousness therapy isn't just to get there.
That's the key.
But once we are there, what's available then for us to take a new path, have a different perspective, find a new solution, have a different approach to our relationship, things that are up in the moment. All of a sudden, then taking that expanded state and then stepping through into the next bits, coming back into the same situation from that open state, all of a sudden we start to see things change, and we start to see ourselves change, and we start to see things open up for us. So in advanced consciousness therapy, it is to bring someone out of the really reactive state back to a settled, grounded, open internal state, and then
That's where you start, really.
Has access to their own leading, to their own guidance. What feels right to me in this moment right now, they know that for themselves. So the therapist is really guiding them to their own internal compass and their own internal guidance system.
And what's interesting about fight or flight, right? When we think about fight or flight, it's like, okay, I almost got in a car accident and I get this activation and I know that that's fight or flight. But what we often forget is that most of us are actually living in a chronic, low-level stress response all the time. And to the point that we don't even feel it anymore. We don't even feel stressed, but we're bracing against life in this strange way. And so that was really eye-opening when we started being able to take clients, have them see that, oh, I'm actually responding from trying to stay safe right now. And if I wasn't just trying to stay safe right now, I could have a completely different response.
When the end destination isn't just to settle the system, and we're asking that deeper question, what's in it, in this that you're being shown, we started to notice these patterns, that the intuitive voice is always leading that person towards their own healing. And so they're the master of their own healing. That really helps to stay out of the story, because sometimes the healing that we're seeking is not where we thought the damage was. We get these really cool revelations where somebody will be, in a session and they've let go of things, they've settled, and then as they're sitting there, they're like, oh, then you see the light bulbs come on. It's like, oh, I always thought it was whatever that is, but right now I know that this had actually nothing to do with my dad. It was all about my brother or whatever that is, and then all of a sudden that truth lines up. And now we can actually deal with the thing that was causing the stress in the first place.
Advanced consciousness therapy is not about like revisiting your
No.
trauma, retelling your stories, re-exposing those experiences in order to heal them. It's a totally different approach.
Right.
We're actually not like digging. We're not asking you to pull that. And so then it often becomes more well received and less like destabilizing.
Well, because the person,
Right.
they know what's there. And I think it would be, if it's okay with you, I just want to share that tapestry analogy.
Yeah.
It's an analogy that to me really works. So hopefully it does for you guys. We have our life the way we present it, and all of our clients or whoever's there, we all have that idea of this is what my life looks like. And if you think back to those old tapestries, which were made out of all the thread and all the colors and stuff, and they're a pretty good representation of a picture, unless you turn the damn thing around. If you turn it around, it's a mess on the back. There's strings going everywhere. So now I'm not a traditional therapist, so I'm going to ask Sire to correct me if I'm wrong on this. But therapy follows all of those threads and tries to hook them together, and we can spend a lot of time back there trying to figure out what knot to untie to get that one thing that I'm trying to get in that corner. What advanced consciousness therapy does is that intuitive voice will speak to which exact knot to untie. And if I untie that knot, all this stuff comes out. And it's so effective and fascinating to witness. But I don't know what knot to untie, and right?
The client knows.
The client knows.
Individual person, like right? We all have our own internal guidance system, and our job as therapists is to help you kind of quiet some of that noise because you have your answers.
But you can't have that intuitive voice switched on if you're in fight and flight. They don't exist in the same place together ever.
So then if we track it back, and this is one of the big statements that's in a way hard to make, hard to accept. But when we do, then we can start to see we gain greater agency.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we're in a stress response, even a low grade stress response, we lose access. We feel disconnected from ourselves. We feel disconnected from that grounded center. Something is like, whoop, taking your focus, taking your attention, and you have less access. As this practice gets more and more and more familiar for people, it becomes easier to see the distraction even before you're fully kind of taken down that path. Mm-hmm. You see the distraction and go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, right. I don't need to go there, right? It becomes, you don't have to settle the nervous system because it isn't in full activation.